My name is Nazihah and I will be continuing with research background. The absence of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions in the country does not guarantee that other disasters will never strike. About a few months back, in December 2021, Malaysia had severe flood-related calamity that claimed many lives. As a result of Terengganu, Kelantan, and Pahang's location on the east coast of Malaysia, where flooding is more common, especially during monsoon seasons, and Kuala Lumpur and Selangor's descent from the sea, the two states' chances of experiencing natural disasters like floods were very low at the time. Due to this, many people, including the general public and the government, did not anticipate that the severe rains in Selangor and Kuala Lumpur could result in even worse conditions. The fact that the entire country of Malaysia had been issued a weather warning by Malaysia, the Malaysian Meteorological Department, only served to worsen the situation. Both the administration and the populace were unprepared for the disaster. Next, the problem statement. According to Vivian 2021, claims that during the flood disaster in Selangor, many people's lives were in danger from hunger, dehydration, and even worse, hypothermia. Many residents, especially at Taman Sri Muda, elders and children could have been safe if only the government had moved more quickly at the time. The fact that the government responded very slowly to the situation just made things worse. As a result, many people were disillusioned and unhappy with the administration. Only the public themselves, NGOs, and volunteers from hospitals and colleges were able to provide aid immediately. Given how anticipated this was, many residents acted quickly to aid the flood victims. This is what led to public's extreme dissatisfaction with the government. Additionally, the National Disaster Management Agency, which is NADMA, was established to reduce risk by providing immediate assistance to victims of natural disasters. Sadly, NADMA did not demonstrate their effectiveness during this storm. To make matters worse, Dato' Abdul Latif Ahmad, the head of NADMA, stated that NADMA was not directly involved in handling natural calamities like floods at the state level. Furthermore, the flood that occurred in Malaysia in the late 2021 and early 2022 affected 11 states and 60 districts, with Selangor suffering in the greatest loss of financial resources and assets as a result of the intense rains that caused the flood. The study conducted by Razak in 2019 demonstrates that the community of Kampung Asahan was aware of the need for action when a flood occurred, but it also reveals that the community's lack of expertise and information regarding guidelines for disaster management. It is advised that the Majlis Pengurusan Community Kampung educate the locals on disaster preparedness. The communities express their disappointment that the government has no plans to help them become more resilient to all hazards. According to Bari, in 2021, conducted a study on the losses and damages brought on by flash floods in the business district of Kajang, Selangor, Malaysia. Natural disasters in Selangor areas also result in significant losses and damages. Next, research objectives. Firstly, to determine the level of emergency preparedness for natural disasters in Malaysia. Second, to examine the relationship between the level of emergency preparedness with policies and procedures for natural disasters management. And lastly, is to identify the improvements needed in policies and procedures for natural disaster management.
The conceptual framework shows the relationship between the level of emergency preparedness with the policies and procedures, also the awareness. So this study based on the framework consists of two independent variables, which are government policies and procedures, and awareness on emergency preparedness with the one dependent variables. So the policies is set of rules to govern the procedures in management, awareness of the public to prepare and respond to disasters, and the level of emergency preparedness of citizens and government preparations, especially in Selangor as a high-risk area. Next, the research methodology, which the research designed on a cross-sectional design for a population in one time involving citizens in Selangor. So the unit of analysis is the Selangor citizens and government because it related with the government action and citizens' preparation on natural disaster because people is unprepared since they are not expecting flood to happen in December 2021. So the sample size is 384 from a total of 6.56 million people in Selangor, according to Craigie and Morgan formula. So the sampling technique used is convenience technique because it is easier to find participants in a huge population, and the study focusing only on Selangor citizens. So the measurement is using questionnaire through Google Form with the Likert scale from 1 as a strongly disagree to 5 as strongly agree. The data collection based on 3 sections of questionnaires by using the Google Forms because Google Forms can use to collect variety of data. Lastly, the data analysis which conducted using SPSS using descriptive statistics and also Pearson correlation. Upcoming to the research finding. So the demographic profile that collected is 288 respondents from 384 required target. Female is the majority respondent with 185 respondents, and the respondent is mostly from 21 to 25 years old. The important part in demographic profile is area of respondent resident, which majority from Klang with 29.2%. So 151 respondents also do not have experience on natural disasters, but 137 respondents had the experience. Proceed to the main findings based on the objective. The objective 1 to determine the level of emergency preparedness for natural disasters in Malaysia, which the measurement using Likert scale and the level of emergency preparedness shows that the respondent is prepared with mean 3.857. So the second objective is to examine the relationship between the level of emergency preparedness with the policies and procedures for national natural disaster management, which accepted the hypothesis which has positive relationship with R is 0.510 and P is less than 0.05. So the third objective, using Pearson correlation to measure the policies and procedures for national disaster management and awareness on emergency preparedness, is to know the improvement needed based on awareness of public. It is because the policies and procedures are functioning to minimize the impact on life, property and also environment as stated by the NATMA and including training and awareness program.
Next, I will continue with the research recommendation. The first one is government's role. The occurrence of natural disasters is difficult to forecast. The government is the only entity that has the ability to foresee events and mitigate their effects. The National Disasters Management Agency, which is NATMA, and Jabatan Meteorologi Malaysia, Met Malaysia, are two government agencies that primarily deal with natural disasters. These two organizations have a significant impact on the public's degree of readiness. NATMA, in particular, needs to be very prompt in distributing their tasks in order to improve and prevent Malaysia from experiencing prior natural disasters incidents again, as evidenced by the last Selangor flood event. NATMA may have been too late to save some people's life. Although there was a lot of awareness during the floods, it did not reach those who were in need at the time. Because it endangers people's life and safety, this has to be stopped. And the government needs to make sure that they react quickly and very fast this time. The second recommendation is to have more programs that focus on public awareness about natural disasters. Programs to raise public awareness of natural disasters are still missing in the nation. Many people still do not know what to do in such situations. So by offering programs everywhere, especially in rural areas, it will increase their exposure. This can make children more alert and more equipped to handle any eventualities. The survey shows that while most respondents are already aware of this, others are not. It demonstrates that the necessity for the government to make these people have more exposure in facing natural disasters. The third recommendation, which is the last one, is to enhance the emergency preparedness in national level. The government must use examples from other nations like Japan and New Zealand. these two nations have demonstrated that they are better equipped to handle natural disasters. For example, Japan has 5 levels of steps. Malaysia must step up its preparedness with dealing with natural disaster because so many of its residents are still unprepared. The government preparedness for natural disasters is essential, and this must be highlighted. There are many areas that can be improved, including alert response and reaction response, both of which the government should improve in the first place.
Proceed to the limitations of study. For the first limitations on limited sample size, because collected respondent in small number and small size to represent the population compared to the total population. It also a disadvantage to the researchers cannot be in-depth on the topic. So the second limitation is weakness of the study, which suggested for the qualitative research, since quantitative approach specify on statistical that make researchers rely on statistics that may miss out the important information. So that a face-to-face interview also can gain more information, and respondent will respond truthfully and immediately because it not planned response. So the lastly, the limited model, because of this study has 2 independent variables and 1 dependent variables, and limited to the variables only, that reduce the range of researchers' information gathering. So the researchers is suggested to do the qualitative research because can learn the actions and attitudes of the respondents by utilizing the qualitative research.
And finally, for the conclusion, in a nutshell, the study aims to determine the amount of readiness Selangor residents have for dealing with natural disasters in Malaysia. The researchers ran a survey to gather more data for a study in order for it to be carried out. Many respondents who were from Selangor filled out the survey, which provided the researchers with more information on the study. The research also provides information on the efficiency of government policies and practices in dealing with natural disasters. Assuming they were aware of the regulations and procedures, some respondents did answer positively, but some did not. Take other nations as models to show how the government needs to pick up its game. By doing this, the country's level of preparedness for natural disasters can be raised.